This study came about as we wanted to better understand students' subjective experience and sense of belonging at Trent Durham. We wanted to find out student experiences of fitting in and being cared for by the institution, identity factors of university life that contribute to or hinder students' sense of belonging to Trent Durham, and examine students' desired changes. Welcome to Trent Durham S.O.B Stories.
I've never actually done an introduction myself. It's interesting. Oh, it's already recording. Well, that's fine with me. Hi folks, welcome back to S.O.B Stories. My name is Fung, and today I am joined by
Tori.
And
Tom.
how would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
I'm currently a fourth year social work student, and I'm looking forward to graduating in June.
I'm currently in third year, sort of in second year. My courses have gone back and forth.
Yeah. So this month we'll be talking about mental health, seeing that it's Bell Let's Talk week this month, and our opinions of that aside for a second, I want to talk about like general mental health. What misconceptions do you think people have about mental health when they hear that?
I came from a family where mental health was treated as if it wasn't a problem. I know that when I was first trying to get a formal diagnosis for my depression at 13, my dad would not believe that, I was depressed because he had met people in his life who had things much harder. And so it was impossible that I could be depressed.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like diagnoses go, my family wasn't really big on like going to doctors in general, just because like they didn't have a lot of time to be like taking me and my siblings to the doctor. So even now I have a lot of difficulty trying to book myself to go to like the school counselor. But there's also that knowing that it's going to be a couple weeks until I can see either one of them.
Yeah.
If you don't mind my asking, do you have like a formal diagnosis?
Yeah, so it wasn't until... So depression had been thrown around a whole bunch from the time I really started to speak with a family doctor at 13. When I did my first degree up in Trent, that is when I actually met with one of the psychiatrists there, and I received a formal diagnosis of... At the time, it was called dysthymia, which is basically now called persistent depressive disorder. And he sort of made a comparison of it being like I'm like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, coupled with, at the time, he gave me the diagnoses for social anxiety and generalized anxiety. And I guess both of those terms were fitting for me at the time. A lot of my classes involved participation, and I couldn't participate. I would show up, I would be quiet, and it was a really big hang-up of mine. So, yeah, I think those really spoke about who I was at the time. But, now I'm sort of re-examining these diagnoses and kind of wondering, how valid are they to me? Because I'm also someone that came from such a dysfunctional family and, a really just an unhealthy environment. And I'm wondering how much of that really factored into my own behaviors and my own conceptions of myself at the time.
Mm-hmm. Would you say then that you had a generally positive experience with the counselors and therapists up in Peterborough at the time?
Yeah, well, okay, so I am a ghoster. I would set up... Basically, I received my diagnoses, and I was supposed to go to another appointment following that, and I actually just didn't show up. The next time I tried to seek out services, I was paired with a social worker that was up there. Her name was Emmanuelle, and she was really lovely. And I think in a lot of the discussions that we had, we sort of got into my family history and, I guess, aspects of my trauma. And I maintained a relationship with her until she retired. And then I went again, just to sort of going back and forth between people. It helps when you feel a connection. And I've had a really positive experience with seeking counseling services here at Durham. But I also wonder if that speaks to just me being a little bit more settled in myself as well. It's been a journey, and I still, I still struggle, but yeah, I don't know. It's something to think about, actually.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Tom, have you ever had any experiences with like the counseling services here at Trent? And you don't have to get into details if you don't want to, of course.
Sure. Yeah, I've been into counseling here a few times, mostly for drop-ins once or twice throughout the semester, or sometimes ongoing appointments for, a couple months where there'd be a thing here and there. Yeah, I very much liked being able to have sort of someone to sort of bounce my internal reality off of if it was a time when the issue I was dealing with was something that I felt would be harder to get some kind of reflections or wisdom or whatever from my parents or friends, just from a relatability standpoint.
Mm-hmm. And you only went to the drop-ins and not like scheduled an appointment?
Mostly from one of the drop-ins, I scheduled a few appointments at one time.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, how much time was in between the drop-in and the scheduled appointment?
I couldn't tell you really. It's been a while.
Mm-hmm. I remember in first year when I actually did, it was the first time ever going to talk to a person for me, and honestly it was kind of the only time because it was pretty sucky. Didn't like it that much, and my friend had told me at the time that it's going to suck, but you have to keep doing it for anything to get better. And then I didn't. But yeah, so I went to the school counselor for the first time, and I was like, okay, that wasn't so bad. And in that meeting, we scheduled another appointment in like a month from then, which wasn't very helpful because I completely forgot about it. And then the day came, and then I was like, and it was the morning, I was like, I do not want to go anymore. So I emailed her and I was like, yeah, no, I'm not getting out of bed today for this. So we rescheduled 2 weeks later, and then again I just canceled it.
Yeah, the turnaround time is awful, especially when you need the services.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think I've had to wait for a month, like have you said, and then maybe the earliest I've had is 2 weeks away. So it's hard when you're going through something.
And then even in like the region, there's not a ton of places that we could turn to.
Yeah. I get referred to a lot of like helplines, which is fine, but it's not, it's not concrete. It's not really going to help me do anything actionable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm at the point now in my journey with trying to seek out support that that's sort of what I'm looking for, as opposed to a listening ear. So yeah, it can be really frustrating.
Has for either of you, has your mental health affected your academics in like small ways on like a single quiz, or in big ways?
For me, definitely. In small ways and in big ways. So I think I had sort of talked about how in my first degree, participation just wasn't a thing, and I would be present, but I wouldn't be speaking, or I would be skipping these seminars entirely, and I would be saying goodbye to 15-20% of my mark. So as I'm trying to navigate this second degree, I have a cumulative average that is garbage. Like, it does not speak to... I'm a good student. I'm a strong student, but these marks do not reflect that, and it's really unfortunate that... I don't know. A lot of it it feels like I sort of did that to myself, but I also realized that that's where I was in my life at the time. Now, because I do have an accommodation for my anxiety, that has sort of helped smooth things over a little bit, and I haven't lost things in that way. But I find that my anxiety keeps me from making friends right away. It keeps me from getting to know people in my class. It keeps people from getting to know me. And before I started getting involved on campus here, I was really lonely. And so it was actually getting involved with Professor Morgenstern's initial study for the sense of belonging that sort of opened that door for me to even begin doing things on this campus. So I don't know. Yeah.
We're glad to have you. Tom?
Some of that reminds me of, the first year I started here, I was originally also still attending an outpatient program for things related to psychosis intervention and such. But that was my last year of a very lucky 3-year program I got to go into. I was feeling like I had access to a lot of things. I was feeling that, I could get more grounded and figure out what's going on day to day in my head more easily when I had a caseworker that I saw every couple of weeks, and there was always a gym group every week with a bunch of people who had been through similar things. There was a men's group every few weeks, and I find since I've come past the maximum time I was allowed to have at that program, that sometimes it's harder to ground myself and kind of rebuild in my schedule things that are not absolute necessities in my head, such as, finishing coursework and readings and attending classes. It feels like I get a lot more lost and into a foggier place somewhat easier.
Are there any, not the word programs, but are there any kind of groups here at the Trent Durham campus that you found helpful, that you have kind of like supplemented what you had from that program in?
Yeah, I definitely like going to intramural sports sometimes. I find that, exercise is like one of those things that when I go and do them, I feel like it's a good idea while I'm there and afterward, and then sometimes I don't want to do them the week after, just before the next thing. I like going to improv and such just because I can unwind and mess around, and there's, no rules essentially. And I can just kind of throw myself at a whole bunch of social situations until some of them make sense sometimes. And usually it's either a bit of fun or just kind of a lot of fun, and sometimes managing a little bit of whatever's going on in my head, and that's all right.
Question for both of you. Are there support systems that you think could be in place on this campus that don't currently exist? And maybe this is like institutional, or maybe this is just like you wish the culture could be a little different.
I don't know. I find whatever culture around mental health changes a lot in different places where you go, and even between every different person that you talk to within those different places. I don't know.
I wish that the Durham campus had more to offer in terms of supports, like just as like when you were asking that question, that's the first thing that came to mind, is just I wish that there were more to go around. On the Peterborough campus, they have a club, which is Trent Active Minds, which is sort of focused around, discussing mental health, sort of trying to break down stigma, offering a variety of different supports to students, and it's run by students. And I think that that would be really nice to be, to have here and to be a part of. Because I think kind of what Tom was talking about with having people that are, sort of like-minded or share that experience, it's comforting. And that could have been nice.
Kind of like a support group?
In a way, right? Or even just people who, like a support group, but that's also like mirrored or it's married with like people that have a genuine interest.
Yeah.
Right?
So not quite as formal as a support group.
Yeah. A little less formal.
But generally attracting those individuals.
Yeah.
Okay. So it is currently January. We are a week and a half. It's Thursday, right? So we're a little more than a week and a half, almost 2 weeks into the winter school term. Two-part question. How did you handle coming off from the last term, and how are you handling starting the new one? So you completed whatever workload was from September through December, and now you have a new one. Maybe it's not quite kicked in yet, but like, where are we right now? Just checking in.
Well, actually, last semester I had a few issues. There's 2 courses I actually didn't pass. There was a lot of things going on, but that's a lot of different, neither here nor there, I guess. Over the break, it felt like there was a lot of rest and relaxation, trying to get things back towards where I wanted to be and understanding how I felt about my coursework and how I was doing in respect to just being able to have things more together. It's very strange. At the start of the semester, like, I feel like that's something that happens, not just with me, is that, like, at the start of the semester, I was feeling like everything was in order, like everything was great, I had a plan, and at this current point, I have missed 2 classes, and I'm very behind on one class's readings, and I'm kind of there with the rest of my classes, which is a very strange feeling, and I go between thinking that it's going to be alright if I just manage this and get this in order, or if I ground myself a little better, remind myself about this or that. I don't know, but sometimes I'm just kind of terrified at home.
Yeah, that I think you've summed up my experience pretty well too, to be honest. I ended my semester. I was just stressed out the whole time. I'm graduating, but I've applied for master's programs, and so I was very grade focused. I know it's not healthy, but
Yeah, me too.
Whatever, right? That's the reality of student life sometimes. And so, I finished off the semester. During the break, I had like things that I wanted to do, stuff I wanted to get back on track with, and I just did nothing. And it felt good to do nothing, but then as it was sort of creeping up to be the first week of classes, I was just like, shit, like, I didn't do anything, and how is this gonna go? Like, how's the semester gonna go? I started the first week kind of like you did, Tom, with feeling like, okay, like I sort of have things like kind of where they need to be, and then it's the second week. I have also missed class. I have trouble waking up. Honestly, at this point, it doesn't help with like the change in the weather, and I don't know. I already feel like I need another break.
I don't know when reading week is. I try not to know, so I don't like over prepare or like look forward to it too much. I feel like I was the opposite of you guys, right? Right after the last semester ended, I dropped one of my classes because it's like, I hate philosophy. I'm never doing that again. But I would have wanted it if I were still following the sustainability and ethics specialization under the BBA. And then I didn't get a high enough grade in the philosophy course that I did have, and I was like, well, I need the credit, but I don't want to take it again. So I just wiped out that goal, and I was like, and for me, it was really, it kind of sucked doing that, because it was something that I really wanted, but I have been described as an overachiever and as a perfectionist, and it's been like 2 weeks now, and I honestly don't care anymore, so maybe that was the right move.
Yeah, I ended up dropping a course as well.
Yeah.
Wanted to take it because it sounded interesting, and then I was like, I can't handle this. Yeah,
I generally find myself, like, at this point, especially when things are getting behind and stressful, I feel like I have to think about a million different things at once. Like, is it mental health related stuff right now? Is it a whole bunch of other stuff going on that I'm not being careful of? Have I lost grounding in, you know, what school is to me, what my goals are, that sort of stuff. And then I generally just find myself in a big gray area, and you know, I just have to remind myself, you know, make sure to eat now, breathe then, things that you're supposed to do, and you know, stay social out and doing things some, because then there's some things I don't know, like that's my normal, is to have some social stuff going on, and so I lose a little bit of, you know, whatever normally goes on in my head if I'm not out in the world with people a little bit. I don't know. I just feel like I want to map. Anyways.
Just as we're wrapping up, I did want to make a point. Like, the two of you have like diagnoses formally and stuff like that, and we and suffer from mental illnesses. I just wanted to mention that, like, I don't have a diagnosis, and I just wanted to mention that, like, everybody has a mental health. Like, we all have physical bodies that even if we don't have an illness, it can still feel bad.
Absolutely.
You know? And that's not saying anything about y'all. It's not saying anything about me. I just hope that we can all take care of ourselves and each other this school semester, which already feels like it's been dragging on for too long. Speaking of dragging on for too long, thank you very much, Tori. Thank you very much, Tom, for joining me on, what is this called again? Sense of Belonging Stories.
S.O.B stories.
Take it away, Nathan.
This has been S.O.B Stories. If this sense of belonging spoke to you, check out Trent Durham's resources at trentu.ca/wellness. Check out other on-campus events in the weekly What's Happening newsletter sent to your Trent email. Follow us on Instagram at Trent Durham SOBs, or email us at belonging@mytdsa.ca. Our next episode will be out in February when we talk about Black History Month.